Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to this next video on my channel. And in this one, we're going to be looking at a relatively simple topic in smart money concepts and Forex, but perhaps one of the most vital ones, and that's liquidity. Now, there's three main types of liquidity. It's very self-explanatory in understanding in the theory, but where you actually need to practice and understand is in the live markets, how to apply it. So what I'm going to do, just quickly, and briefly go through the actual concepts of it, the three main types of liquidity that we look at, and then looking at two examples, one in hindsight and also one in the live markets and what I'm expecting to be happening now. Of course, as I always say to my students, whenever I do my weekly analysis, first of all, the first things you always want to get sort of in your trading plan, understand fundamentals to know the market sort of bias and understand the directional bias of the market. So it gives you that kind of insight into where the market is actually going. And then understanding where liquidity is, first of all, in terms of your technical analysis, where you can potentially take profits, where price was actually sort of gravitating towards. And then, of course, entries and order blocks and, everything else it comes afterwards. But market structure and, of course, liquidity is one of the most important sort of aspects of your technical analysis that you can look at. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Now, in terms of the three main types of liquidity, I've briefly explained this in one of my Instagram posts recently. The first type that you've got is equal highs and equal lows, very self-explanatory. A lot of what retail traders actually do is the opposite to us. Personally, I always look at these as liquidity zones, areas that I'm looking to take profits or where I'm expecting price to go towards. However, what they usually do, as we know, is say, for example, we have this equal low. They would rather trade a triple bottom and then trade from there. However, what we should actually look at is where are people's stops, stop losses and everything like that. I don't ever really want to use the word institutional type of trading because I follow a lot of traders that provide content from banks and everything, and they still use a lot of retail strategies. So I'm never going to say, oh, I do institutional trading. But that's the type of stuff that you would look for, this type of liquidity zone. Then the second type, trendline liquidity, again, self-explanatory. Whenever you're in a trend, it's going to keep rebounding like this. If it is in perfect conditions, you might get some kind of channel like this, or perhaps maybe a wedge or a flag, whichever type of pattern. And then the third type is buy side and sell side liquidity. This is perhaps a bit more complicated. I still get messages from some people on Instagram and even in my YouTube comments about this one. When you're in a downtrend, it's very easy to identify. It's pretty much the lowest point that you've been at, and then you're going to use that as a take profit, for example. But where it gets a bit more complicated is when you're in some kind of consolidation and you're trying to understand where do I actually have that buy side liquidity and how can I use that? Now, when actually looking at the markets, I was looking back at an example with one of my students the other day. We were on a one-to-one call. Of course, this is provided with the bigger package that I do for the mentorship and stuff. We'll get into that a bit later. But for now, this is one of the examples that we actually came upon. Now, what's actually price done here? I'll explain from the start. Overall, we're actually in a downtrend. So market structure is showing very nice sort of sell movement in terms of fundamentals as well. With, I believe, when was it? November of 2021, yeah, October time. So we had that energy crisis around Europe and everything. Fundamentals were literally suggesting to me GBP sales, US dollar was getting stronger based on some other reasons, interest rate hikes and tapering. I don't want to bore you guys with fundamentals for now, but so we reached the sell point right here. When looking for potential areas to look for sales, always look for premium areas when you're in the downtrend. So that's exactly what we've got right here. Then in terms of price, what I want to see for us to actually start selling is some kind of solid breaker structure down. For me personally, this was the last move before the sort of the massive impulse upwards, right? So that's what I want to see being broken. This is exactly what I talk about in one of my videos, the strong versus weak market structure. Definitely give that one a view. But as soon as we start to get this break of structure downwards, we have to identify, what's actually going on with the market structure. We start to see this buildup of liquidity right here. And even looking at some stuff more in depth, this idea of buy-side liquidity that I talked about, this is exactly where you would start to see in the market. Here we're on the 1 hour chart, right? So it's, it's very valid to understand this. We have this unmitigated order block right here, perfectly within this larger point of interest. That's always what you want to be looking for. But what did price actually do? It didn't actually hit the order block, but instead it started to leave this buy side liquidity at the top, eventually leading me to believe that we would come back to this area, and in particular this order block, which is exactly what happened. Now, as soon as we started to get that reaction right there, for me personally, this massive move up, straight up into it and then back down. Personally, I may not have traded this trade right here, but rather I want to see a continued break of structure down. If we started to get some liquidity build up in terms of equal lows, and look what's happened, we've started to get that exactly. To me, that's a perfect indication that we now want to be selling. We've got nice market structure coming to the downside. Fundamentals are on point as well. Plus, we've got liquidity to aim for. And in terms of liquidity, there's actually 2 points that we could have aimed for in terms of selling. We've got this equal low right here. Then we've also got this trendline liquidity right here towards the sell side. So just looking for points of interest. Of course, there's other videos that I've looked at in terms of order blocks, but this would be one of them. I believe on that video with, the one with 185K views, that one actually explains this is the first type of order block that I would always look at. This one enters straight into the body and then straight back down. Now, just from understanding this, you can easily see how all of these concepts can be applied. So it's very easy for you guys to understand, this is how it looks like. But when you're actually in the live markets, understanding that this, for example, is buy-side liquidity and how that order block hasn't been unmitigated yet is very key to understanding that, we might actually reach that level and then start to sell off. Indications like equal highs over here, this eventually has to be taken, leading me to believe that we're going to reach that area and then potentially drop. Again, when starting to look for sells, we've got this nice market structure to the downside, these continuous breaks down, one break here, again, another break. And then the main confirmation for me is literally this one right here, this massive equal low. And then just simply looking for an entry. If you weren't going to be refining your entry at all, could have been something like this. And then usually I like to keep a bit more conservative, stop loss just above the high. So you could have easily got a 1 to 4, for example, but if you had refined your entry, would have been something on the 5 minute, for example, could have even been something like this. Especially if the timing was right. When was that? During Asia. So I wouldn't have taken that personally. I probably would have waited till London session the next morning. But yeah, you can start to see how you can actually use this and, refining your entry. That's for another time really to sort of explain. But yeah, now we've got this case study right here. How about actually applying this into the markets? It's all well and good looking at this in hindsight, but actually using this in real time at the moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to look at GBP USD at the moment. So let's just leave all of that. Okay, so this is the most recent analysis that I've done. Of course, guys, in terms of everything that I do, fundamentals are always released every single week. For example, before the week ahead, I always start to look at fundamentals and what we can expect in terms of directional bias. I always keep my members updated with that. And then weekly analysis, of course, looking through the different types of pairs, moving into more sort of entries and what I actually enter, I always send into the Discord as well. So yeah, now let's get straight into this. In terms of what I see right here, always like I said, I've always got to have that fundamental back end. So personally, I am expecting some kind of consolidation at this point, but then eventually to potentially see GBP USD to more of the downside. Obviously, I'm going to reevaluate this over the next coming weeks as we get some more data and some more news about the Fed and everything and what they're going to be doing going forward. But yeah, this is what I would usually do. So first of all, identifying liquidity. Personally, this is what I've identified right there. We've got that trendline liquidity up there. Let's see right here as well. Even something like this. Understand we had that liquidity right there. And what did price actually do? When straight back down started to accumulate. So of course, if you are into work off as well, eventually I'm going to get into that lesson. But price broke this structure up here, taking this liquidity, and now we're starting to see this kind of upward consolidation in a way. Now, what I'm expecting to actually happen is for us to get to this area right here, you know, we have on the 4 hour, we have this massive liquidity void right here, or an imbalance. So I'll just call that an imbalance for now. Usually what tends to happen is this actually gets filled. Now, another confirmation is because we have this trendline liquidity up here, plus this imbalance, it gives me further indication that we still might be getting up there. Of course, we don't want to be doing a counter trend at the moment until we get some solid sort of confirmation of some kind of trade. But yeah, this is the kind of way that you would actually start to look at everything. In terms of what's recently happened, let's just go on the 30-minute. As you can see, we are starting to get this kind of buildup of liquidity right here at the moment. Now, just to briefly explain, again, that sell side liquidity point. What can we see here on the 30-minute even? We have this unmitigated order block right here. However, what price actually didn't do, it didn't even tap into it. So personally, I would even consider this as a sell side liquidity for price to potentially literally just tap into it and then boost up, exactly as we saw in the other example. Now, if this doesn't work, for example, of course, we do have this sort of trendline liquidity building up. So I can expect that to be taken and then leading us down to this refined entry right here. So the body of this candle right here. And yeah, so at the moment, I am expecting some kind of consolidation. So potentially working in between these areas. So I could see something like this happening. And then depending on what actually happens up here, you know, we are close to getting some kind of equal highs. Close to, but not completely yet. Could be expecting something like that. But yeah, that is pretty much the way you would actually use this type of analysis, you know, understanding where all that liquidity is. Now, for example, because we still haven't even broken this high, I could still expect price to come down and take this, you know, take this trendline liquidity right here, and then eventually lead us to be taking this one over here, leading us into these sell areas where I would maybe even look to enter a limit, for example, taking us down to this liquidity right here. So you see, understanding liquidity can be very simple, but of course, when you get into the market, because it's so complex, it's always changing. This is the type of thing you need to pretty much observe and practice more and more, really. But yeah, guys, for those of you who have messaged me recently, you know, you asked me to to explain it countless times, but in terms of everything that I do offer, it's two types of packages. So you'd see I've got the course and the mentorship sort of bundled into one with the trading channel as well. So all information is in my Instagram stories, you know, everything that you get here, 80 videos, pretty much explaining all of that. Of course, the whole fundamental course and technical course links will be in my bio on the YouTube video. In terms of the course content, you can, you know, flick through everything that's included. A lot of what my students actually praise me for is the fundamental section. You know, it's smart money concepts a lot of traders actually know, but when it comes to fundamentals, I find it very difficult understanding that and employing that with technicals. Both of these packages are one-time fee only. So yeah, if you are interested, all links in the description. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this lesson. Don't want to keep it going any longer, as simple as it is. All right, guys, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.